individuals or corporates may have acted as inspiration for our own. It is always okay to not
Let's talk about concussion.
That's a tale for another time.
Thank you.
What would happen if you put a man on Mars with no spacesuit? His body, made for Earth, is not fit for this alien atmosphere, and he struggles for breath. Without getting into the grisly details, he must leave immediately or die. What if I told you that this exact situation was happening right now to millions of creatures, not in space, but in our oceans? The ocean contains 99% of the living space on Earth. To provide protection, restoration, and wise use of this marine heritage, in 1988, all of the important environmental organizations, both governmental and non-governmental, came together and created a global representative system called Marine Protected Areas, or MPAs for short. These pockets of life in the ocean are currently threatened by the impact of global warming. An MPA is an area designated and effectively managed to protect marine ecosystems, processes, habitats, and species, which can contribute to the restoration and replenishment of resources for social, economic, and cultural enrichment. There are 28 large MPAs in the entire ocean. However, they total only 4.4% of the entire ocean area. And in the United States specifically, there are over 1,600 designated small MPAs that account for almost $27 billion of commercial fisheries, which can contribute $595 billion to the coastal economies through tourism and recreation yearly. Never in the history of humanity has the health of our oceans been more threatened and more important to our well-being. The costly decline of ocean health impacts people, such as fishermen struggling to feed their families, and is made worse by the disastrous effects of climate change. We need more marine protected areas in the right places, where the conservation need is most urgent and where the potential for their contribution for both humans and wildlife is at its highest. With well-designed and well-protected marine protected areas, we can boost the health of the oceans and even turn around the downward trends of marine biodiversity. To help explain this a little more visually, I've created a diagram. Let's imagine a specific species of fish in its most comfortable environment, otherwise known as an MPA, represented here as a polygon. However, global warming can alter the pH, the temperature, and the salinity of this area. Because of this, the fish is no longer in its most comfortable environment and leaves the area we have designated as an MPA. The fish is now susceptible to external environments that we can no longer control, bringing the health of that species to the risk of uncertainty. But keep in mind, what I've shown is one specific fish in one specific location with one specific MPA. This is happening everywhere, all the time, on an absolutely enormous scale. There are three types of MPAs that will be most affected by this change. They are zoned multiple use, no impact zones, and no access zones. An example of a zoned multiple use area might be a public beach where people are allowed to visit and interact with the ocean, but where some parts of the ocean are prohibited from their touch. No impact zones are just public areas where no humans are allowed to touch the water. And no access zones disallow human activity entirely. These act as a scientific control variable, allowing us to see what an environment without any human interference looks like. So here's the problem that's facing us now. Global warming can affect pH, salinity, temperature, chlorophyll count, and trigger several changes in ocean biogeochemistry. All of these affect the functioning of a society. With the changing climate, MPAs aren't protecting what they need to anymore. I've collaborated with a lab team in Oregon State University to help solve this problem. What we've developed involves analyzing data related to environmental change and using predictive modeling to anticipate the changes and impacts of global warming on these highly sensitive ecosystems. I was able to map the expected changes over the next 100 years and calculate a Newness Index. This index indicates the extent to which parts of the ocean will be experiencing new conditions. As you can see, the legend shows a Newness Index. This index indicates what the new conditions will be like. Yellow, represented by 1, means completely different. Think about the difference between the Dead Sea and the Pacific Ocean. Completely different salinity levels. Blue, represented by a 0, means almost no change in the ocean. If we look on the graph, we can see that not only will the glacier melt happen, but the water surrounding it will also be severely affected. And if we continue on this current rate of global warming, our entire world will be completely different. My lab and I were playing a game of pin the MPA on the globe, and we found this very small, tiny MPA right off the coast of Micronesia. This MPA, after running our Newness Index on it, gave us information about how it would change in the next 100 years. We were able to find the most common temperatures for each of the 10-year periods by finding the most middle point on each of these curves. Not only has the most common temperature risen by 4 degrees Celsius, the model predicts that it will become the most common temperature year-round by 2100. Now, 4 degrees Celsius doesn't seem like a lot, but to the fish, it's the difference between Earth and Mars. So what does this all mean? Oceans and healthy oceans are our most important asset as the planet. We need to protect them, and MPAs are a great way of doing that. By implementing this technology, not only will we be able to protect multiple species of marine life, but we can have a bigger impact on the ecosystems that rely on the ocean. Communities like Oregon that rely on marine life and fish as one of their main livelihoods will benefit from this forever. The Earth's climate will change, and I'll be there to watch it happen. But with this prediction tool and political will, when the fish find themselves living on Mars, we'll be there, ready to protect them. So while we protect the best, let's work on the rest. Thank you.